Now we'd like to move to the panel discussion. The theme is AI and Sustainability. We'd like to hear the panel discussion. We'd like to invite the moderator and the panelists. Please welcome them with a round of applause, please. Now I'd like to hand it over to Mr. Hirayama Ryu, Country Representative Japan, London Stock Exchange Group, as well as Director of FinCity.Tokyo. Thank you. My name is Hirayama, Country Representative of LSEC, as well as Director of FinCity.Tokyo. First, we'd like to start with the introduction by our panelists. Would you please turn to the next page, please? So, in this order, I'd like to ask each of the panelists to introduce themselves, and then I'd like to briefly explain what we'll be discussing in this panel discussion. Good evening, everyone. My name is Aranami from Microsoft Japan. I'm the FSI Lead and Managing Executive Officer. I became this position 2 years ago when Microsoft has become the AI company, and then every day CXOs of financial institutions are meeting us how we can make transformation in financial institutions. That's what we discuss all the time. And based on that experience, I'd like to share our insights and what will be the future vision outlook for Microsoft. That's what I'd like to touch on in my discussion. Thank you. Thank you. Katayama-san, please. Good afternoon. My name is Katayama from Preferred Networks. I'm the CFO of the company. As the CFO of Preferred Networks, I've been serving as 2 years, and before that, I served as an AI engineer, coding, as well as CFO positions. In the past, I studied and researched and acquired the master's degrees. So I love technology. Today the theme is AI and Sustainability. I'd like to share something interesting and intriguing to you all. Thank you for having me today. Thank you. Kurabayashi-san, please. Thank you for having me. My name is Kurabayashi from DNX Ventures. DNX Ventures is a company investing in Japan and US startups, and B2B transaction is what we focus on. This is our characteristics. We focus on startups doing B2B transactions, not B2C companies. And in Japan, we focus on software companies, 100% basically in Japan. SaaS, cloud, these are, well, I thought that this is the end of my career, but I need to learn AI as well because, well, it's up and around. But I'd like to share something based on my experience. Thank you. Thank you. Now, in this session, the theme is AI and Sustainability. Perhaps this may be a bit different from other panel discussions that we had today, but we'd like to ask 3 things to the panelists. The first one is the current position of AI utilization in finance, how it's in progress, and where we can identify challenges. So that is the first topic. In the next part, I'd like to talk about AI and sustainability, the crossroads of these 2 concepts, how AI is making contribution in the sustainability domain. And the third topic is for Tokyo to become global financial city. So not just AI and sustainability, we appreciate your input on this topic. We have 3 panelists today, and we've heard introductions from them. AI platform, AI model of service, as well as AI, the venture capital investing in AI companies. Three different opinions and views are something we can expect from this. They are all the experts as well as they are, on critique, so we would like to hear a lot from them in this panel discussion. So without further ado, we'd like to move to the first part, the current status quo about AI utilization. So Aranami-san, I'd like to ask you first. We've been engaged in various financial institution personnel in AI projects, and from that experience, what will be the current status and what will be the future direction? What are the current challenges? Please let us know. Thank you. First, as mentioned, I've been staying in this position for 2 years. What I feel, this time financial institutions of Japan, with regard to AI, Gen AI, and I think they are very serious about these new emerging technologies. Based on the global level, other countries, I think many financial institutions in Japan are very serious about this. Honestly speaking, in terms of cloud adoption, the Japanese financial institutions are very much behind. But with regard to Gen AI, I think they see this technology as favorably due to the favorable regulatory situations. That is something we are seeing at this moment. And please move to the next page. You can see the frontier firm on the slide. What is this? Microsoft issues annual report, work trade index report every year. And FY 2025 work trend index report is the year defined as the year we saw the birth of frontier firms. What are they? What we define this as the human and agent coexisting with each other. So the firm that enabled that or that is trying to do so, that is what is defined as frontier firms. So FY 2025 is the year we see the birth of frontier firm where humans and AI exist together. And so the pathway to frontier firm, we set up 3 phases. The first one is humans and assistants. Humans may make use of Gen AI bots, for example, as assistants so that each of the human beings can increase their productivity. So this is what many financial institutions or most of financial institutions have been in this phase 1. In some form, they use AI or bots as their assistants. And the next step is a team of human beings and agents. In the past, people are making up the team. However, you can make use of agents and human beings all together to try to increase productivity. And this is something I'd like to touch on later. Global leading financial institutions have already in this phase 2 in some cases. And the last phase 3, what kind of vision we can achieve. Next to humans, you can see various agents next to them, and parts of the work would be independently managed or executed by AI or agent. That is the future we can expect. Of course, the overall process or framework needs to be designed by humans, and the final decision-making needs to be made by humans. But some parts of work or tasks can be handled by AI or agents. I think that would come in the very near future. That's what we believe in. So, in phase 3, companies making use of humans and agents, and these are the frontier firms that can thrive in the future. I touched on the fact that the phase 2 companies are already there. An example is the Barclays in the UK. As you can see, 6 months ago, M365 Copilot, this is the AI we offer, and they distribute it to 100,000 colleagues or users, and it's increased to 120,000 users. So they let employees to make use of AI at work and how they use this. And this is very interesting. This shows the overall scheme. At the top, you can see Barclays colleagues. They are the user, employee of the company. And they are faced with the AI interface, which is M365 Copilot as well as colleague agent. It's integrated in this manner. So the colleague agent and AI agent, UI for agent. So this is a UI for agent. This is an integrated interface. And the colleague can have an interaction and dialogue with this user interface and to gather various information, or you can ask instructions to execute some of the tasks to the agent. For example, to the left, you can see M365, Word, or documents, or PowerPoint, various softwares, Teams, chat. There are a lot of software and structured, non-structured data existing there, and AI can refer to these, agent can refer to these. And also on the right side, you can see that there are various solutions, so Workday or Salesforce, ServiceNow. These are various services and software with a lot of data, and you can execute tasks using these, and you can integrate these. And with a multi-agent, the colleague agent can become a leader of executing all of these, gathering data and executing tasks. That's what they envision.
Next slide, please. And I hope you would actually see how it's working. This is going to be the entry point for the Copilot. And if you would click on this, then, yeah, please click. The colleague agent will appear, so that's the UI agent. And there's a window down here, so you are going to put in various tasks or your requests, instructions, and from various different data sources or by connecting to various solutions, this is going to do the task. The first example is about receiving a certain gift. May I receive this gift? When you ask to the colleague agent, the colleague agent would check all those Word documents, the compliance manuals, and say, well, this gift is risky to receive. And the next task is how many extra holiday days do I have, paid holidays? Then colleague agent would say it's going to be the work day that they should be checking. So it would go and ask the agent of work day, and then that work day would refer to that person's holidays or work days and check how many more paid holidays that person has. So not just collecting information. If you have so many days, well then next week from Monday to Friday, please take a holiday. I'd like to take holiday, you say. Then the colleague agent would request to the holiday application and do so. It would be connected to Salesforce and also do the arrangements and several things. So previously, you had to set up those separate solutions, but everything would be all integrated into the single UIs. So the colleagues, the employees would only contact this colleague agent and do everything. That's how it works. So by utilizing this, in the past, maybe you were doing a lot of non-value added work, but now agent can do a lot more for you. So the humans can engage more in that value added work. That's beginning to be realized in a certain company like Barclays. Thank you. So that's still phase 2? Yes, that's phase 2. So person is utilizing various agents to solve various issues. And by phase 3, it would automatically be done by agents. Agents would autonomously and automatically do the processing. So what is the timeline, lead time until going to phase 3? So technology-wise, it's already existing. So now it's up to your determination to how far you would like to go into. So it's up to each company, and also such discussions are already happening with various financial institutions in Japan. Thank you. Now I'd like to ask Dr. Katayama. So at Preferred Networks, you're utilizing generative AI and deep learning, and you're very active in the financial sector. But can you give us any specific examples or the ideas that you're having? Thank you. I'd like to share a slide. Okay. Sorry, it's a crowded slide. Sorry for that. But we at Preferred Networks, first let me tell you what we do at our company. So stepping back to that introduction. So we have entered the 10th year since the foundation. So we are doing a lot of generative AI. But before that, deep learning was the first phase in the earlier days of Preferred Networks. So we went through that phase, and then we went on to AI, and we've been proactively doing a lot of business surrounding AI. And actually, as you may know, in fact, the AI and machine learning, deep learning, is something that started from before generative AI days. That's what I reflect from the past. And we have been doing a lot of things from those days too. And as what we show here is relating to a lot of operations and management, but utilizing data, executing something, or giving insight to the investment management, such things are already in place. We often do that, provide consultations on those matters. And in a way, generative AI type of technology is one thing, but this is another technology. That's what I feel. So the complicated formula or something involved and AI attached, when it comes to that level, I mean, generative AI is not good at such things. I mean, it's good at handling language. So I think there are different AIs to be involved in different areas. Now, but there's this generative AI in place, and so far we've been talking about event-driven and picking keywords and such. But now it would go through, sort through various different sources of information and pick the right information and suggest that for the investment management works and such. But it's not going to be easy to achieve alphas immediately, but there's different experiments already happening in the financial sector. And next page, please. So for us, I think there are several different phases to be utilized in the actual work. And as mentioned earlier by Mr. Aranami, most of the companies are trying to introduce LLM in the whole company and utilize the LLM. And I think we're already at that phase. And on top of it, now connecting to the database is going to be the next step, and maybe you're already working on that as well. And in the daily work, the type of work might be already changing for you too. We also feel that a lot. And under such circumstances, for each one of the workflow or work process, for each task, we are trying to do something different from platform. We are working on solutions for those tasks or workflows. And such utilization cases are increasing. And furthermore, now we have this large language model LLM technology in place, and customization of that is another trend. And a lot of companies are already doing such things. We are also doing that using together with as a domestic AI company. We are also making LLM dedicated to financial sector. Sorry, this is kind of advertisement, but the utilization ways are multifaceted, but in the operational area, we'd like to improve the efficiency to raise the value. But not just that. In the investment management, there is a data ocean. So how can you quantify those? In such ways, AI can also be utilized. Thank you. So it's relevant to the final question I was going to ask. But this domestic LLM, there are only a few companies that's doing this in Japan from scratch. But compared against global giant, when you're trying to compete against the global giant who is sitting next to you, actually, what is your determination or passion about them? Well, in that regard, we are very much utilizing Azure, actually. So the global smart models are incorporated into us as well. And other than that, there are various different other areas of business or fields. For instance, in financials, there are some that has to be on-premise, or it's not really financial, but like manufacturers, they also prefer on-premise. And more sovereign usage, that significance is becoming higher. It may not be directly linked to the financial sector, but there are various areas, and in a way, they want some connection to internet or in one area, but there are other areas as well. There are various offline areas, and we can provide customized services, and that's one's value that we can provide. And another thing is now Japan is the fourth GDP. In terms of GDP, Japan might be number 4 in the world, and the third choice option of LLM might be offered from Japan, and I think there would be some needs in some areas, and we're striving hard every day to develop such things.
Thank you very much. I'd like to add one thing. Microsoft will tend to be highlighted with a partnership with OpenAI, but this is not everything. So we are very open in terms of our model, the domestic model included. This is something we are very flexible. We'd like to incorporate into a platform when something is great. Okay, thank you. Kurabayashi-san, due to the emergence of AI, how startups and VC have been changing, and you are expert in SaaS, and some say that SaaS is dead. So the impact of AI is, well, right now greatly discussed, and I'd like to ask you the impact and implications coming from AI emergence. Yes, SaaS is dead. Well, somebody said that. It's not that SaaS is dead, and it's the true sense. That is, SaaS needs to be redefined. That is the true meaning. Some people ask me that SaaS is already dead, isn't it? So that is the question I'm asking, but that is not exactly the case. I like SaaS business model, and I will like SaaS business model, and the AI and the SaaS fusion have been there and will be there. That's one thing. And also, in Japan and in the United States, I think how we can fight may be different. In the United States, the Cs, they said that they are all in for AI. They will just make investment in AI, Gen AI, or AI agents. That's what they do. And in the United States, AI companies are only, ones that can receive money from VC at the moment. Well, with that, you can reap great fruit in the United States. Well, as we see the technology spreading from the United States, and Japan has been on the side of just using the technology. So US VC's approach may make sense from that perspective. And as I do this work in Japan, I have a lot of companies I invest in Japan. And they are excellent companies in SaaS industry. So I don't want them to be, defeated that easily. So one thing I'd like to say is that this is not binary. This is not dichotomous. The SaaS company has database and workflow, and AI native companies, whether they can create that and how long it would take. Or when we'd like to sell some solution to major companies, we need to handle a lot of things, logging and privilege setting and authorities setting. AI agents can replace a SMB, a system of engagement, these parts. These are the areas that AI agents can readily replace. So when I make an investment, enterprise companies are what I focus on, and they're all based on their own workflow and database. Try to incorporate AI element into it so that you can handle labor work, or you can gain insight from non-structured data and feed it to the application. This is the approach I give as guidance to the companies I invest in. Okay, thank you. Earlier you said that the companies need to have workflow. As we are a data company, that's what we tend to think a lot about. Data may be visible, but that alone would not be very meaningful. So you need to understand workflow to make good use of data. I think that is the great advantage that we need to make use of. That makes sense. This may be a bit off topic, but earlier you touched on, due to the emergence of AI, you had to learn AI as another technology. And what did you do specifically to learn AI? Oh, so I use Python to do coding. I need to understand vectors or linear algebra, or as DC, I need to understand technology in making an investment. I'd like to support companies I invest in that manner. And also business model and subscription system would vary, would be different, and predicted recurring gross margin 80%, negative churn increase. That is what I love about SaaS model, but we cannot just stick to this. So that is something I've been learning. I invest in a company called Flux. I'm a board member for that company. They use AI for consulting. Company like a Palantir, starting with consulting, can put it into workflow, and with that outcome, they share insight about optimization of personnel to the major companies. And well, it's not just terminating, but without doing that, you cannot gain or reap economic value from the process. But after doing that, you can receive orders. But how you can assess the revenue, the sales revenue multiple, and the multiple coming from this, how we should see this. But Palantir has very high valuation. What kind of model, well, we need to see for AI startups? That's something I've been learning. Okay. I wish I could talk a lot about this, but time is pressing. I'd like to move to the next part. The next one is AI and sustainability, cross point of these two concepts and technologies. I'd like to start with, well, Katayama-san and Anami-san, I'd like to ask you the same question. At your company, you've been engaged in AI at various levels. Initiatives at your company or activities together with your partners and clients, how AI can contribute to sustainability. So this is the question what I'd like to ask, starting with you, Katayama-san. Yes, please show us the screen or the slide. Thank you. Yes. As you are already feeling, LLM or Gen AI demand has been growing in an exponential manner. Power, water, resources, can we, well, let it go as it is? This has been the problem. On the left side, you can see exponential growth of the amount of learnings, setting up very large, huge data centers to set up LLM, GPT 5.0. In 6 months, you can double the size. That is, the number of data centers doubled during this period. And on the right side, this is, well, there's some information website on LLM, and usage data increased 50-fold. And in the past, it was 100-fold. So there's great increase here in terms of number of requests. That's when we are living, and there will be significant impact on our resources, as you're all aware. Next page, please. In this manner, we are using various resources to enable AI, and conversely, what can we do as players? There are two things we are doing. So, to make AI more efficient and to make things more efficient with AI, these two things. And the first one I'd like to touch on, this is how we can make AI. In the first place, AI. Which part of the AI consumes power? The answer is GPU, processor for AI. This is what consumes power. And domestic AI semiconductors are what we create. The next version is available. And this ranks #1. We won this 3 times in terms of energy efficiency. This is before Gen AI era. So around that time, AI power usage was not that significant. Well, we consume power. Well, that was not that significant, but it's become more and more important with the advent of Gen AI. And AI semiconductors need to be cooled, which requires power. And that heat needs to be exhausted. That requires power as well. So the core, how we can increase the power efficiency, this is the common challenges shared by not only us, but all the semiconductor manufacturers. And the materials are developed to suit this purpose. So this is what we are making some contribution. Next page, please. Another thing I'd like to touch on, we can make things more efficient with AI so that we can create a more sustainable future. That is something I'd like to touch on. In this slide, together with NLs, we do Matlantis. This is the new material we're trying to identify using AI computer. We try to, well, this is a SaaS that we can accelerate this process. And here, well, this is very undetailed, minute things, but materials on the right side, based on the periodic table, they are made up of atoms, and then the characteristics of the atoms needs to be confirmed through simulation or actual experiments in the past. But with computer simulation, well, you need to incur a lot of calculation, which consumes a lot of power. But with AI, you can make some guess in advance by, well, of course, that guess is very accurate because of the power of AI. So in terms of material creation, it took 2 months in the past, but you can get the result in an instant manner. So you can test out various items to identify new materials. That is a new cycle we've been proposing. And 100 companies across the globe, well, including universities, that is, but they are using this solution. So using AI, you can accelerate these things. That's another way.
And there's one more thing. Next slide, please. And here's another example. This is also engagement with NLs. And last year, we did this press release. So there's the crude oil processing device equipment, and using AI technology here instead of humans. So the left is manual, right is the AI. So there is little less variance, less fluctuation. So with that, you can diminish the loss or improve the efficiency. So that's the operational support that AI can provide, and use the energy in a wiser way. So that's another way of utilizing AI. Next page. Sorry, that was the last one. So I think there can be two ways. Thank you. Okay, Aranami-san, same question. Thank you. So there was a mention about make Microsoft sustainable and realize sustainability through Microsoft. I would like to talk about two aspects. So this is to enable Microsoft to be more sustainable. So as mentioned earlier, we have huge data center. We are constructing many more of them. So we are using so much electric power and water, of course. And on the left, we are showing our targets for electric power, water, waste, and the biodiversity. For those four, we have specific numerical targets. And in the decarbonization, it says carbon negative as our target. And our target is rather than not just thinking about now, thinking about realizing carbon negative since the foundation of the company. So this is one area we are very much eagerly working on. But as shown on the right, this is the current status, the current progress. Number one, regarding the decarbonization, it's been pretty challenging for us actually, especially ever since generative AI came into place. There are accelerated construction of data centers. So unfortunately, compared against 2020, we are still increased by 26% only. So in order to catch up with the great needs for generative AI, we have to build more data centers. So the progress is not as good as we had expected, but the target is the carbon negative. So we are going to engage in untiring efforts to realize that. Because when you make data center, you use a lot of concrete and steel. So changing the material is one another area, ways to make more sustainable data center. We're seriously working on such efforts too. Next page, please. And from here on, I'd like to talk about what Microsoft can do to be more sustainable. So our solutions, we have our own proprietary solutions. There are three things especially we are doing. And one on the left middle part, there are various different sustainability related data, like there are various data at each subsidiary group companies, or even within a company, there are data in various different departments. So integrating all those. For that, we have Fabric, which would virtually integrate the data. So with this platform, you can cluster all those scattered data into one place. So data integration effort is one thing. And using that data, integrated data, visualization is something on the top. Microsoft Sustainability Manager, MSM. So this is actually a dashboard. So as a result of data integration, you can tell where you are right now. So that's the initiative we're working on. And furthermore, there are various regulations, and you have to create reports. And there is Microsoft Purview, Compliance Manager. So complying to various different countries' regulatory rules, there are templates ready. So making some of the work much more efficient. So in those three areas, we are providing support for sustainability. Next page. So as regards to MSM, which I mentioned earlier, this is the example of the dashboard. What is the level of emission now? What is the emission per revenue? What is the water usage? And such various different data will be shown in an easy-to-see manner in a dashboard for the management, so you can work on further efforts. And among Japanese companies, there are some that have already introduced this MSM to work on to work on sustainability efforts. And this is the example of Mitsubishi Electric. One use case, the representative use case that we'd like to share with you. Next. So on top of it, how about integrating AI to that? So this is going to be the total picture. Actually, earlier I mentioned Barclays example, but it's very similar to that one. So at M365 Copilot would become UI at Barclays, I said, and just like that at the top, it says Copilot. For sustainability as well, this Copilot would become the entry point for AI. And as shown in the middle, there's that fabric, utilizing fabric. You can do the platform for data integration. So the virtually integrated data would be referred by the AI. So in a very easy manner, you can collect information or you can execute the task relating to sustainability. So via Copilot, it would be easy to do or easy to realize. So with such concept, we'd like to do more in sustainability areas utilizing AI. Thank you. I also would like to ask Mr. Kurabayashi as well, but sorry, we have such a time constraint. So, well, while listening to those two people, are there any burning desire to say something? Otherwise, I'd like to move on to the next part to have you say more. Please move on. Please move on. Okay, so let's go into the final part. So what can Tokyo do in order to become the international financial city? So this is a bit off from the AI or sustainability, but I'd like to ask you broadly, what do you think? So first, Mr. Kurabayashi, your question. So you have spoken at various events about the importance of strengthening startup governance. So what should Tokyo and Japanese startups do to compete globally? What is needed for the Japanese startups? And also, what kind of support can VCs and financial institutions provide? Thank you. So let me share the slide. Yes, thank you. Recently, I've been talking a lot about this topic. So since I have been given precious time, I wanted to share this with you. Maybe this is a little off from today's main theme, but this is very important. So let me touch on this. Japan has been eager to support startups nowadays. And as mentioned earlier, in the US, startup financing is becoming tough, but Japanese startups are having an easier life in the financing. Large companies are investing in those startups a lot, so it's easier to do the funding or financing, but just as the preferred, it's not easy to get bigger. And one factor for that is the governance. The governance is too weak, I think. Once you get listed, of course, you have to deal with the market, and there is governance code you have to keep, and there will be greater discipline required. And when you are still private company, what should be the style of governance that's required? Compared against the US, there is difference in Japan. So here is the US example. What is the role of the outside director, especially number 4, the release of the management that's decided by the BOD, and the majority is the outside director. That is guaranteed from the private level. In Delaware, you are going to get listed. You're going to be registered, and it tends to be decided by the shareholders meeting, and the decision is usually made by the board members. So even the startup managers, instead of choosing the good VC that's good for them, you would have to choose the right VC, because that member would be a member of the board for you and the one to decide whether you can be listed or not. So from such perspective, they would choose the right VC, and also VC, vice versa, they would, the person with such capability would be coming in. So that's the difference between US and Japan. And the next slide would indicate the actual example from various different sources. So there's often a case where the founder would continue to be the president CEO. That's a common thing in Japan. And in fact, that is considered to be a beautiful, great thing in Japan. But that, and of course, if it works well, that's the best. But it does not always work out well. When the business becomes bigger, it would become more difficult. And as you can see from those figures here, in the US, the replacement of the CEO is often happening in good ways and bad ways. And this is to maximize the corporate value for the shareholders. So for such decision, for such reason, such decision will be made.
To this, well, as Japan is different from the United States, we need to make use of Companies Act in Japan. We cannot do the same thing in Japan. But we need to establish a certain governance among startups. Otherwise, Japanese startup ecosystem would not be evolving going forward. Lastly, I have this, well, the third page. I write paper which was covered in some magazine. If you're interested, please read it. I will not go into the details of the differences shown at the top, but these are the 5 differences in terms of legal and commercial practices. So simply put, the venture capital and external directors in Japan cannot do number 1, number 4, which has been satisfied by the US external directors, the VCs. That is how the venture capital are developed in Japan. So some people may feel that something is different in Japan with regard to VC. This explains the reason. In Japan, VCs and external directors are not expected to do vital tasks. So the venture capitals in Japan and the US are doing the different things. So lack of these number 1, number 4 are so significant, so impactful. And we need to nurture talent who can do these kind of things in the first place. And of course, we cannot let the current people to do this. They are not capable overnight. So we need to develop such talent, and they can lead the governance and the startups to provide support. And by doing so, we can let the venture capital startup ecosystem in Japan go forward. Thank you. Thank you very much. I think that's a very important part. I'd like to ask you a lot of questions, but in the interest of time, I'd like to ask other panelists, Katayama-san, as a domestic AI company, what would be necessary for Japan to become AI power, and what kind of roles Tokyo can play? It's very grand and question, but I appreciate your view. Thank you. So I'd like to share my humble view. Please share the slide. So once again, the same slide. These 2 graphs, there are a great difference between these. The table on the left side, I think the horizontal is 5 decades, so from 1950s. And the graph starts from 1950s. On the left side. So the history of AI creation has been very long, and cloud and various technology become apparent. So this is the accumulation, and we've been working hard on this aspect. But conversely, on the right side, this is just a recent year, 1 year. So this is something you can become number 1 if you start now. And this is where we can identify opportunities. Of course, we'd like to work on the left side as well, but there are some opportunities for Japan, and startup support is something that has been mentioned. And this is where Japan is good at the moment. And we are seeing the concentration of these resources in Tokyo, especially. With high density in the ecosystem, I think that is a great thing to enjoy. What we can see on the right side is growth. Well, that's coming from smartphones and cloud technology. And there's exponential growth, and we can create an environment, an ecosystem under such circumstances. Well, as we've been still working hard as a startup, that is the view I'd like to share on this point. Thank you. Last but not least, Alana-san. From the global tech company, what are the attractiveness of Tokyo and Japan? Could you touch on this? Thank you. I'd like to show you the slide. I'd like to cover this very quickly. As mentioned, Japan and Tokyo has Japan offers a lot of potential. That is what Microsoft feels. Well, as I briefly touched on, the regulations on AI and support from government has been very positive in Japan. Japan is a country that the government says that we like to be the country where the AI can be developed and utilized most in the world. So we are seeing great tailwind in AI industry in Japan. And Microsoft, as well as a tech company, AI cloud investment 440 billion yen will be invested in. This is our commitment we made in Japan. And our AI products, well, at a greater scale, Japanese financial institutions have been using this M365 Copilot as well. Excluding the US, Japan is number one, excluding the United States. So next to Japan, the Copilot the usage is number 2 in Japan. So Tokyo and Japan, we can expect a lot going forward, and we'd like to actively make investment in Japan. And thank you. We have heard a lot of things from the panelists. I would like to wrap up the session in 1 minute to give you a digest. In the first part, we talked about the status quo about AI in the financial domain. Japan is, well, leading in terms of AI utilization in phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. Domestic financial institutions are at the moment in phase 1, and there may be some financial institutions entering phase 2, as Aranami-san is aware of. And so it will be in progress. Another thing, Katayama-san has touched on this. Many people talk about Gen AI recently, but as with chart, we are seeing continuous growth and evolution of artificial intelligence from 1950s, not just AI. There are some other approach using deep learning, not Gen AI, and by combining that, you can improve performance of the technology. So we need to select the right approach. And in the SaaS domain, AI is SaaS has been redefined. SaaS is not dead in itself, so that is a reassuring affirmation. But business model and commercial model have been changing, and the financial institutions who support the business needs to understand the fact. AI and sustainability. Well, we saw the chart, LLM demand has been growing in an exponential manner, and so the calculation became twice in 5.5 months. So there's a great demand and power and water and resources. The impact on this needs to be fully reconsidered and revisited, and how we can make AI efficient and how we can make things more efficient with AI. You touched on these, and specific example is chip efficiency enhancement or the use of green materials. The discovery of materials can be enabled by AI or data center efficiency improvement, as well as process efficiency enhancement. These are what are covered in the discussion. As we see increasing demand for AI, and AI may be a solution to the resource shortage problem. When we can see that to be a wonderful thing, so we can expect the momentum in that direction. At any rate, as we've been hearing from you, maybe different countries have different views, but sustainability, importance of sustainability remains unchanged, and AI will further accelerate the need. Lastly, on Tokyo becoming global financial city, we received a lot of input, starting with startup. A very important ecosystem, how we can enable proper governance there. That is something we need to think and consider in a serious manner. That is a great message. Katayama-san and Aranami-san, you too have touched on the fact that Japan is very positive about AI as a country, and Japan's strength is that we see high utilization of AI, and excluding the US, Japan is the #1 country utilizing Copilot. That is very symbolic. And Kurabayashi-san, you touched on this, so this may be somewhat relevant, but high-density ecosystem is something we can identify in Tokyo and among startups. That is something we can regard as the strength of Tokyo. Given the demographics of Japan, well, we need to make further investment in AI. So, as Aranami-san has mentioned, there's a risk of not giving that try, not taking on challenges highlighted by the FSA. But of course, we need to think about sustainability aspect as well. So we need to face that problem squarely. So this is the rough digest of the discussion. Sorry for running over time, but that concludes this panel discussion. So I'd like to hand it back to Suzuki-san. Thank you very much, the moderator and panelists. Thank you very much. Please give them a round of applause, please.